everybody. It's Wednesday, February 7th, and you're listening to the About to Break podcast. This episode features Lynne Stanko, wonderful improviser from Chicago. I know that you're going to love her. Lynne started a nonprofit to help reach out to young women and uses this incredible tool of improv just to encourage them and to build them up and to empower them to make choices, just like improv is all about making choices. Life is all about making choices, so I know you're going to love it. Before we get into the conversation with Lynne, a couple things I want to let you know about. First of all, really excited about what's going on with our Patreon page. We've just added some cool new rewards. What is Patreon? Well, it's this incredible platform that allows creative folks and artists to be able to connect with their audience in a deeper level. It allows you to provide some financial support, and it allows me to be able to provide you with some great, not only rewards, but behind-the-scenes looks at what's going on in the life of the artists that we talk to each and every week. So I encourage you to check it out. I'm going to continue to post videos and even audio that won't be available on the podcast. It'll be available on the Patreon. And for as little as $1 a month, you can be a producer of the About to Break podcast. I'm so excited about the Patreon. I want to thank all the producers of the show, and I especially want to thank those who have joined us in the Patreon family just the last month. Jess Kruger from right here in California. We've got Keith and Melissa Coast from Oklahoma. My buddy Greg Binnick from Seattle. We've got August Wiboa, and we've got Josh Oot from Carson City, Nevada. Thank you to everyone who's been sponsoring the podcast. Some give $1, and that's fantastic. Some give more than $1. Whatever you can do, it makes a huge difference. So I'd encourage you to go over to abouttobreakpodcast.com, scroll down to the Become a Producer button, and I'd love to send you some rewards and send you a thank you for just reaching out and doing what you can to help us keep these programs going. One last thing I want to mention before we get into the show this week is we're starting something new, folks, and this is because of what our patrons are doing, because they're given financially, we're able to do stuff like this. We're starting a live show, a live monthly show. Our first one's going to be Tuesday night, February 27th at 7 p.m., and it's going to be in Hollywood, California at the Clubhouse Theater. We're basically going to do what we do every week on the program, but we're going to do it live, which means you're going to get to see performances by the folks that we're talking to on the program. I've got coming in from Canada, I've got Wes Barker, an incredible magician and illusionist. This guy has over 50 million views on his YouTube channel. He's hilarious. You're going to love him. He's going to perform. Then we're going to sit down and talk a little bit. And then my buddy Johnny Beaner, who was on one of the very first episodes of this podcast a year ago, is going to perform some stand-up comedy. He was one of the last guys featured on David Letterman before Letterman shut it down, and since then he's been touring the country. He's hilarious, and he's going to come back to be on the podcast once again and also perform for you guys live. The best part about it is the show is absolutely free. That's right. All I ask is that if you'd like to come, if you go on the Facebook page and RSVP, let everyone know you're coming, and give us a little heads up because we're going to bring some goodies for folks. So I hope to see you there. Until then, sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 59 of the About to Break podcast with my friend Lynne Stanko.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Hey everybody, welcome to About to Break. I'm your host, Taylor Hughes, and this week I am joined by the power of the internet, all the way from Chicago, Lynne Stanko.
Isn't the internet great? I'm so glad we came up with it.
You know what? It's got its ups and downs, but I'm pretty grateful.
Yeah.
Like at this moment right now, I'm very grateful.
Oh, that's sweet of you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for doing this.
We've met through the power of internet.
Yeah, we have met through the power of the internet. And now we are connecting.
We've never met in person.
That's true. That's weird. We've talked very often and never face to face. That's how you say that, right?
Yeah.
But when I found out that you also were very into improv, and not only into improv, but have your own nonprofit that you founded and direct called Show Up Girls, which is incredible. And I want to talk about that. But I also want to geek out a little bit about improv. How did that enter your life?
The right place.
You were in like the mecca of improv as well. Like
I am. I think like a lot of people my age and around my age, improv entered my life through the original run of Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yep.
That was like the hokey, cheesy appointment television. The whole family gathers on whenever it was to watch it every week. And it was something I had never seen before. I thought they were magicians.
Yeah. Yeah.
You think that when you're normal watching good improv, it's like you're like, they must be cheating, or they're the smartest people in the world.
Yes.
And it's neither.
Well, I'm so glad you brought the correlation up between magic and improv, because I have a love-hate relationship with magic, and it's what I do for a living, because there's so much bad magic that people see it and they just go, I don't like magic. But that's like saying I don't like food, or I don't like music. I've had people say that about improv, and I said, well, you've never seen it then.
There's so much bad improv.
Bad magic and bad improv are like, it's almost like you're watching a school talent show where none of the kids were at practice.
Well, it's a school talent show, and like, it's no one's your kid. Like that's the thing. Like, if you went to a school talent show, like all children are beautiful, right? But like a second grade school talent show that was mandatory and no one was your kid, first off, they shouldn't let you in the building.
Right.
But second off, you're not going to have the same experience as if it's your child's first moment singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star in front of 50 people, right?
Improv scenes aren't my thing, but it's different when they're yours.
Yeah, I get a lot of flack because, especially in LA, I would have friends that are like, hey, you want to go just watch some indie improv at 11 o'clock at night? And I was like, absolutely not. You just asked me if I wanted to do a full day of work and then leave my apartment again to go drive to Echo Park.
Right.
To watch people do nothing for 15 minutes.
Right. Right.
I want to see the best of the best. Yeah. But that makes me sound like a total snob. And so I should reiterate that I'm not a snob.
No.
And that I very much love improv. And I can be in a mood where I will love watching it. I don't go see improv shows anymore, except for really like the pros that have been doing it for 10 years, the like very famous teams. I don't go see it as a way, with the idea of, I just want to laugh. Like, I go to watch choices being made and to like observe art, right? I watch it as like a scientist. So I don't mean to sound like a total jerk about it.
Not at all.
So many bad heralds in my life that like I pick that.
Oh, you're like, and on that first initiation, you're like, I'm going to see a third beat of this nonsense.
Well, exactly. Or I'm not. I'm going to watch
even worse. Yeah.
I'm going to watch people not even do what was handed to them.
Right. Right.
And then it's like, I got to work. It's like my mind is working. Like, all right, well, what should they have done?
Right.
Like, why am I doing your scene for you in my head?
Right. There's something about watching a really bad performance of any kind that makes you just second guess your involvement in it at all. Like, why did I ever?
You know why? I have that thought, and it's specifically like, I remember, you just look back at the alums, especially of Second City, since it's the oldest school,
right?
In the 60s, 70s, and Alan Alda, Ed Asner, like these serious actors, and then Catherine O'Hara, Andrea Martin, obviously Del Close, like all of these brilliant people. And they had all these strong references and they were artists. And now, like, if you see enough, I was going to say something blue, but I won't, just ridiculous.
You can say whatever you want, Lynn.
Well, I'll use this word in the purest form of it, which still is not pure, but masturbatory scenes.
Yeah.
That it's just like, have we devolved as a society? Or am I, of course, that's not true. You're judging the best of other people's scenes against, everyday improv. But, improv is, there's all the different schools of thought, literally with the schools of improv about what improv is. Second City believes it's a tool. Right. IO believes it's the art form itself. But, sometimes it's pure art, and something you saw that's improvised could be a play, and you could, with no changes, put it up in front of an audience the next night and it would have the same magic. It would feel scripted.
Right. Yep.
And sometimes you're like, okay, well, now it's just a tool for us to realize that we should quit as a group, or that we should, that we have a lot of work to do to make that a sketch, or, okay, that was a good initiation, but we made a lot of weird choices. And so now we should, if we want to try that again, we need to make all these changes, you know?
Yeah.
It's a lot of things.
It is a lot of things. And which is funny because, and this is total ignorance on my part, but for the longest time, I would watch great improvisers. And I've grown up in the world of like magicians and stand-up comedians that they've curated an act, you know? And so
Yes.
because of that, I just thought, some of these guys are just hilarious and they can think on their toes. And I never realized there's technique and there's a way to go about discovering what's unusual and heightening it and all of that I think most people just think, some people are funny and that's what improv is. But it's so much more than that.
Oh, yeah. I have a thought. It's usually you're either you're the person in the ensemble or on the team that no matter what you say it's going to be hilarious. So you're there to get the laughs. You're there. You're the sure thing, the sure bet. I am not that person.
Is that like a timing thing, or like you've got a quirky voice, or?
Yeah, I think it's just some people, just the way they talk is hilarious.
Yeah.
That's not me on a stage. I'm the like workhorse that's like, all right, you might not laugh at any single phrase I say tonight, but I'm going to make sure that I'm going to do all the structure. I'm going to make sure that these scenes are coming back, that we are bringing theme.
Yep.
That we're making sure everyone's being seen and heard from, that we're looking at different points of view on this theme that we've discovered.
Right.
I'm going to try to build the structure for the whole event of the show.
Yep.
And then please, you clowns, just say something, because otherwise this is not comedy, this is drama.
I love it so much.
And some people are both. Some people can just... They know they can do structure, they can do theme, and then they're also just so funny with the things they say. But that's not my strength. I come at it from like a director, actor, or a director writer view.
Well, and that's why, you mentioned some great actors who started off as, serious actors who started off as improvisers. And I think a lot of people who haven't been involved in it don't understand that that's a huge part of it, is not going out there and trying to be funny, but going out there and really grounding your scene and just reacting the way most of us would react when something unusual happens, and that becomes funny, Yeah,
it's... Anytime I've gone into a scene trying to be funny, it has not worked out. You have to come out being truthful and having a point of view and being open to exploring whatever tangent you and your partner get on.
Right.
You have to be in pure openness, and then also have a mind of knowing still like the functions of things and how long should this scene go on, and do I need to tie anything into this scene from before to make sense, or what would be a really creative choice, that would be the cherry on top of this, right?
Yeah.
It's thinking of the whole show within one scene,
right?
Which I try to save that work for when I'm not on stage in a scene. I try to, when I go on stage, just like kind of have one idea of where I'm going, and then just be open-minded to play for the scene until we get edited. And then when I'm backstage, being like, okay, what just happened? What have we seen so far in this show, and what are we missing, or what do we need to bring this together?
It's that weird. I've heard people say, I think UCB is big on the whole, like, I think their slogan is "Don't think," which is, the whole point of that is being present and being aware and being in the moment. But you have to be keeping track of so much that's going on and that's happened and what is coming up, and it's a weird thing.
Yeah, and UCB, I have some UCB training, but it's not the majority of my training. Yeah. So in 2010, 2011, I did the Second City improv program, and then did the IO Chicago program as an intensive.
Wow.
So for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 5 weeks, I did the full program with one ensemble, 5 different teachers.
Okay. Did you find that doing the accelerated like that, you were able to apply things? I mean, you're able to obviously take what you learned yesterday and the next day put it into practice.
Yeah, it was so mind-blowing, and it was an extremely creative period of time. And I did it because I was leaving Chicago at the end of the summer and I needed to get it done.
Wow.
I just needed to take it. So I did all that, and then I was studying abroad, and then I moved to LA, and I took one class at UCB when I first got to LA.
Yeah.
And then just was focused on getting my career in television started. So I really didn't do improv again for about a year or two. And then I went back, to me, it was going back home to IO West.
Okay.
There, and completed their whole program again. Because I just love donating to improv school. They need the money.
I was like, yeah, I one day was like standing on Franklin in Hollywood at like 12 o'clock at night waiting to see a show and thinking to myself, this is a brilliant business model. They've got grown adults paying, $400 or $500 a class.
I once tallied how much money I had given to improv education.
Yeah.
And since then, I've completed 2 more programs. So like, I don't want to do the addition anymore.
Yeah.
It's because I've been studying it for 8 years.
Right. Right. Yeah. You have those moments where you go, I could have done this or been a doctor.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, I love being in class, and I do it the way other people do yoga. It's just good for my soul to do it. And I love learning, and I love the exercises. So, it's not like I'm like, okay, I need one more class and then I'll be good.
Right.
Right. It's a social aspect for me. It's also, I keep moving.
Yeah.
So I keep needing to be injected into the social circle of the improv community in Chicago, and then in LA, and now back in Chicago. So, last night I graduated from Second City's conservatory program.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's incredible.
That's why my voice is
what did you say?
That's why my voice is hoarse from screaming on stage.
Oh my goodness. What was that like when you finally got to that point?
It was great. So I moved back to Chicago. I was in LA for just under 5 years. And then I drove for 4 days from LA to Chicago. And then I didn't even have an apartment yet. And 2 days later, I auditioned for the conservatory here at Second City.
Wow.
Because I hadn't done it. I had gone through the program, the undergrad, basic improv program at Second City. And then I moved. So now I came back. I'm like, all right, unfinished business. I'm doing the conservatory now, or I'm auditioning for it. And I got in. So I started classes at the beginning of last year in January.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, we did a full year of classes. Classes ended in December, and then we had 8 weeks worth of a run, a sketch show. And our last show was last night.
Oh my goodness. Congratulations. Yeah. That's incredible.
Thank you.
And there's something too, I'm such a geek when it comes to like the history of entertainment. And you think, especially Second City in Chicago. I mean, we have Second City here, but it doesn't even, I don't want to say it doesn't count, but there is within Second City, isn't there like if you're Second City, LA, it's not the same thing?
It's low on the totem pole, definitely. UCB is just such a king in LA.
Yeah.
Which I realized once I was 3 levels into IO West that it was like the entertainment industry people that didn't do improv didn't even know what IO West was. And I was like, this is not helpful. But I stayed with it because I love IO's philosophy. So I was like, all right, I'm choosing it.
Yeah.
I would be the one to bring it up in LA. That didn't happen, but I probably shouldn't.
Well, there's
insult a school.
No, because here's the deal in LA. The reality is the reason so many people go to UCB is at the moment, or maybe within the past couple of years, it's been the hot thing to have on your like headshot. You know what I'm saying?
Completely.
Like people which is why it's funny when you take like 101 courses in any of the UCB stuff, there's just people in there who could care less about improv. And then the further you go,
any level 1 improv
oh my
at any
goodness,
school,
because you can tell right away. It's like,
yes, it's all actors whose agents told them to do it.
Totally. And then, but then there's a thing too, like even like you talked about you doing IO and you loving their philosophy. So much of it isn't just having something nice to put on a resume. It's actually being able to pull off the work and to be good. And I think we've forgotten that. I think that sometimes I feel like in LA, it's all about just trying to, take whatever shortcut rather than actually being good.
Well, because it's so expensive. I have a theory. I have a theory of why UCB is king in LA. And
I want to hear it.
Yeah, and why I don't think improv works in LA at all. And I decided it, I think probably into my second level at IO West when I was in LA. Having done improv and seen such beautiful improv in Chicago, when I got to LA, I was like, you cannot be selfless and here for your partner if you're worried that an agent is in the audience.
Yep.
If you are in LA and you have sent your headshot and resume and said, please come see my improv show, which you shouldn't. Why would you do that? Send that to sketch or a play where you have control over the material.
There's no guarantee.
Why would you do that?
Hey guys, I'm going to be playing Russian roulette on stage. Come check it out.
Right. Yeah, you're going to take the chance that this is the improv show that's really, really good. I just think, so UCB, their methodology is just what's funny is can go with the first unusual thing. Unusual equals or strange or unordinary equals funny, right? You're going to take that and you're going to blow it up. You're going to go ridiculous with it. Go down that rabbit hole. Well, great. I have seen a lot of UCB scenes that are two people sitting in chairs and just, talking heads. They're very, very funny. They should go be stand-ups. They don't need each other. That's not a criticism of it because those scenes can be very funny, but that is very different than an IO methodology, which is I don't care if you laugh. I care that you're compelled.
Yep.
I did a 2-person show for a while with my friend Ryan Tweedy at IO West, and we did 25 minutes of just 2-person improv mono scene, and we were a couple getting divorced, and that's just how it happened. And at the end of the show, I was like, Tweety, did anyone laugh? And he's like, I don't know if anyone laughed, but I think they were really compelled. They're really interested. And I was like, great. Fine, good.
Yeah.
That's all I care about. There have been many times I've been in an improv theater and I don't care if I didn't laugh at all. That's not what I came for. Another nerdy tangent I have about improv, I was thinking one day, all non-surrealist types of art are just trying to mimic what life is in any ordinary day. Think of like a still life picture.
Yep.
It's trying the quote unquote better it is, the more it looks like it's a picture, even though it's a painting.
Totally. Yeah.
Photography. How many tricks with lighting and the lens are you trying to do with this camera so that it'll just look like you were there? Right.
Yeah.
The best improv looks like it's 2 people talking. And it's so weird. We can have a full conversation. All of life is improv. I don't know how I'm ending this sentence. That's improvised. But the second that I or anyone else gets on stage to do quote unquote improv, you suddenly talk like an idiot, like a literal idiot, like a baby that just learned, right?
Yeah.
And so the best improv, again, non-surrealist improv,
right,
like all other art, is how close to real life did it look? So if it was really true to real life and then also compelling, that's all I care about. I don't care if you laughed or not.
Right.
But going back, that's not something that's going to help you get a walk-on role on a sitcom, right?
Well, which is why it should be a different thing. Years ago, this came in. I mean, I think probably with Seinfeld is when it became like, used to be there was just comedians. You were a comedian or you were an improviser. That's what you were. And then it became, well, what else can you do? Can you act?
Well,
can you direct?
What else can you do to pay the rent in LA?
Yeah.
That's the issue. Chicago's a great process city. I mean, people are like, how can you live in Chicago? It's so expensive. I was like, because I was just living in LA.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? I live alone for under $1,000 in a neighborhood where I will likely not get murdered. So I'm feeling great. That's impossible in LA.
Yeah.
So you have to just focus on what's going to get me a job in LA
true.
when you're starting out, when you're a comedian. There's no time to go, I'm going to go do art.
Right.
Do a dramatic improvised thing just for fun. That can be a hobby on the weekends if you have time, but it's just not your first focus when you're 22 and you've moved out to LA and, you only have a runway of 3 months before you have to take a job, right? Or you have to take a full-time job because your waitressing job isn't going to, do it. It's hard to be about process there.
Well, and I can speak to being, when you're 22, also when you're 37 and have kids and a mortgage and a family, and you're still an entertainer for a living, there are different kinds of sacrifices, but it's that tension of, do I take the work that's going to pay the bills, or do I take the work that brings me joy and fulfillment?
Yeah.
And it's not, honestly, maybe not take the work, because that work isn't being offered.
Well, exactly. I don't know. I used to say, there's only 2 people making a living being improvisers, and their names are TJ and Dave. And now that show isn't running anymore. Dave Pasquesi and TJ Jagodowski, and they both do their own things acting wise. And they're absolutely brilliant. But I also think that getting paid to do improv may, spoil the art of it.
Yeah.
Once it becomes your job, right? Maybe it's like getting paid to do yoga.
Right.
Although I don't know how many people pay to watch you do yoga. But
I think that might be a different thing.
That's a different thing. Although I watch my yoga teacher do yoga when I'm exhausted and I'm in child's pose and she's standing on her head. So, but that's like a different thing.
You're seriously challenging me a lot, because this is an ongoing gripe I have, is that I feel like the monetization of an art form is when it becomes very challenging, because you always have to take something's always got to give,
Yeah.
I mean, I love existential, thought-provoking, challenging, compelling entertainment. And I think it is one of the greatest joys we can experience. And maybe twice a year, I'll be in an environment where I can be a part of something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I perform full time. So
right.
That's where, even friends who are like, oh, that's great, you get to perform full time. It's like, yeah, but it's not really the thing.
Working.
It's not the thing. You know, I'm a salesman. I'm just selling something different. Well,
how much of it though is perspective?
Yeah.
I heard something like a year or 2 ago that I really try to remind myself of as often as I can, that life is here to amuse you. So, if you're thinking, if something happens, and it's just like, today was a weird day for some reason. I texted that to a couple of friends, and they were like, it's weird for me too.
Yeah.
Just some weird vibes out there. But, if you were having one of those cumulative days where just one thing after another, one annoyance, so much so that the 20th annoyance, if it were on its own, wouldn't be a big deal. But because it's cumulative in one day, and because you're focusing on the negativity, it's a problem. It really gets you upset. There's a choice to make of, you can choose to laugh at that and be like, wow, today sucks. Or, wow, I angered someone. Or it's like, whatever God is correct is pissed. You have that choice to laugh about it. And thankfully, the benefit of laughter, it doesn't matter if it's genuine or not. If you're laughing about it, it's going to have an impact on you. It reminds me of, I was clearing out my cubicle when I left my last job in LA, and I found a old school number 2 pencil, and it was just riddled. It looked like a machine gun had been after it, riddled with bite marks.
Yeah.
Because I don't bite my pencil, but I went through a really, really terrible bout of anxiety the year before. And I used the pencil to, I had heard, that idea that you can, if you fake a smile, it doesn't matter. It still improves your mood.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I can't really just sit at my computer faking a smile. They're going to call the medical team, So I just not like this made me look any more normal, but I bit into a pencil because that makes, I had seen that tip, bite a pencil or a pen, and it'll put your mouth in that smile formation, and that will help. And I was just so miserable. I was ready to try anything. But it's the idea of you can always force yourself to smile and try to change the mood about it. You can choose to be amused by it. And I saw that pencil and I was cracking up, and I showed it to my friend. I was like, "Oh, remember when I was crazy?" You can choose to laugh at it.
Yeah, that's something that Katie and I talk about a lot is we have to remind ourselves, if it's going to be funny later, it should be funny now. It's hard. It's easier to said than done, but
it's tough.
There's those moments where you go, I know I'm going to laugh about this. I know this is going to be one of the top 5 party stories to tell. Right now, I'm so furious.
So mad. My best friend and I have an agreement with each other. When something terrible is happening to one of us, the other one will say, okay, do you want me to help you think about how to fix it, or how to tell you that it's not a problem? Or do you want me to wallow with you? Because I'll do either. Because sometimes you just want to have a hissy fit. When everything is terrible, I think you are fully allowed to be, woe is me, and I'm so pissed off.
Right.
But there's a limit. You can have the night, and then the next day you have to fix the problem itself or your view on it.
Yeah.
Right? But you should feel free to have a hissy fit if it's not going to harm you or someone else. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Life is unfair. Damn straight. I can't believe that happened to me.
Right.
And then the next day you got to fix it.
See, this is just being kind to ourselves. It's giving ourselves a break to say it's okay to be pissed sometimes. And it's also okay to care enough about yourself to make you move on to the next thing.
Life is here to amuse you.
It's so good. You know, when I started doing, I didn't start taking improv classes. I had done improv in high school and stuff, but I didn't start taking classes in LA till a few years back. And it was because I went through this insane situation, just a really bad transition in life for our family. And I was just a mess. I was a freaking mess. And I was going to counseling, and counseling was helping some. And I just could not shut my mind off of everything that was racing through it. And I took improv on a whim because I had gone to some shows and I was like, oh, this is fun. This looks like I would enjoy this.
Yeah.
And I swear to you, Lynn, it was oxygen to me for months and months and months, because it was the only time that I could get in a room and completely focus on what was happening there. And it was so unrelated to all the shit I was dealing with in my life.
Oh, completely. And I agree. I went through, I was part of a Herald team at Iowa West after we completed the program. We played every Saturday night at 11:30 with no other team in the time slot. We once performed for a teammate's mother and a girl that was on a first date with someone else on the team. Those were the 2 people in the audience, and there were 9 of us.
There were first date to the improv show.
There were over 4 times more people on stage than in the audience.
Can I get a one-word suggestion? Ma'am, it has to be you.
Yeah. But and again, you have to choose to let that amuse you.
Right.
Yeah, it was welcome to Iowa West, where they really support all their Herald teams with great time slots.
We're the best they got, guys. We did it.
They got. We're headlining.
This is prime time.
For the guy that's going to lock the door at the end of the night. But, I was doing that ridiculousness and laughing about it over milkshakes afterwards.
Yeah.
When I was, staying up all night with heart racing, severe clinically diagnosed depression and anxiety, right?
Yeah.
Where I would be debilitated any other time of day when I was home with my own thoughts. And then at improv doing that and being fully free and being both myself, my functional and problem riddled self and other characters and playing. I mean, how healthy is it to play?
Yes.
Adults.
Adults don't do it.
No.
We're not allowed. It's looked down upon, or it's criticized, or
I feel like I am the only reason I am adjusted in this world is because I play constantly because I'm in these classes.
Good. So good, Lynn.
It's so important to not care. It's because I care about everything. I am like such a, for someone who teaches self-esteem and confidence, and it's why I do, I struggle with it all the time.
Right.
Before I got on antidepressants, I didn't realize that that it's not normal to leave every conversation thinking the other person hates you, right? Like you're just oh man, that went really bad. I'm the dumbest person they ever spoke to, right?
Yeah.
But you go to a class, that same person who is constantly criticizing herself would then go to class and be like, I'm an elephant on the moon. Nothing weird about that. Like
and be completely accepted too in that moment.
Completely accepted.
Yes. And not just accepted, but like encouraged and applauded that you came up with "you're an elephant on a moon." Like,
oh yeah. Well, and how courageous is it if your partner says we're elephants on the moon, and instead of you judging it, you go, "Yep, hey Henry, is it brunch time?" And like you set your little moon breakfast up, and you eat with the trunk.
Yes.
How courageous is that? And how good does that feel when you're the person that initiated that?
Right.
I have this. Okay, you said you like existential talk, so this is going to sound crazy, but I just was thinking about it yesterday. I was like, what if someone offered basically like a VR, virtual reality mask for you, where you could just be. I was thinking like people can't afford healthy food and safe shelter and to live where they want to live. What if everyone could just wear these VR things that you're in a safe shelter, living where you want to live, with whom you want to live, you have all of your needs taken care of, and you can just focus on joy. Like, would you choose to wear that and then in quote unquote real life just sit and, let dust gather on you and decay because you were in that VR life? Like, would you let that happen? And it's like, well, no, you have to live your own life. And then I'm like, well, how is this real life? Like, how is this not the same thing? How is this not a mask? That I started blowing my own mind.
Yeah.
But if you take that a little bit further to bring it a little bit more down to earth, if this is the VR mask, if this is the only shot you have, why choose to be bored or upset or a victim of your own circumstance, right? I say that as a privileged person, but, life is unfair and there are victims in this world. But claiming victimhood for too long is so detrimental to yourself.
Right.
And I'm very careful the way I say that because there are true victims in this world and I don't take that struggle away, but there is also a point where it's like, okay, I am a victim of this terrible thing. And now, right?
Yeah.
And now,
I'm victimizing myself by choosing to live this way every day.
Once you're removed from the present action that made you the victim, now how is this my life again? How do I take it back?
Yeah. This is so good. You're encouraging me because it's a weird existence we live in, because I feel like all of us, everybody's privileged. If we can have a cell phone to call someone to tell them we're going through a lot of stuff. The ones of us that are struggling the most right now are still have it better than most people in the world. And yet I feel awful when I go, literally today, I was completely anxious and I couldn't even tell you why.
Oh yeah.
I you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, oh, I love my family. I love this podcast. I love performing for a living. And the only way I can describe it is several times a month I go, I got to be this guy again. Like,
Ooh.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
there's just something about like when you just, you almost feel like I got to get away from this person. Then you go, oh, crud, it's me. Like,
I had that feeling this morning. Now, granted,
you
I was
really?
doing my taxes, but I also feel that when I'm not doing my taxes.
Yeah.
I completely know, like, this lady again? Really?
But this is why when you say how important it is to play, sure, those feelings are real. Whatever challenges we're going through are real to us.
Mm-hmm.
But you can choose to play.
And you can also choose to carry out play in the improv scene or in sketch or whatever your playful art form is. You can choose to take that with you once the playtime is done.
Yeah.
You know, if you are going through something really bad and you, as an improviser, play someone with a particular point of view, if you go on stage and you're like, all right, I'm going to be a person that's in love no matter what. She loves what's happening. Well, imagine if I played that character in my real life at a dinner with friends. How great would I be?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I genuinely meant it. I wasn't being fake.
Right.
If I chose to be in love with all of my friends and everything they were saying and respect it and love, you know, what they were talking about and be so interested in it. Imagine how that could improve you.
Yeah.
And so I like the idea of playing, not just because, you know, the science behind it and you know, how it boosts your immune system and just, you know, helps with stress and worry, but also you could learn from it, God forbid. Right. You're trying on all these different hats and maybe you choose to keep a hat later.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing to say.
I work on it with my girls that I teach. You know, it's let's run a scenario where, what does the scenario look like where we're being supportive of each other? Yeah. What's a scenario look like? I was teaching a Girl Scout troop and I didn't think we were going to be talking about this, but a mother, a troop leader that was present said, what do you do if your friend talked bad about you to someone else and you heard about it? Mm. And so I ran that scenario. I was like, okay. And when we were first beginning, because I have an hour with them, and if they're 10, I can't teach them the tenets of improv, you know, fully, and also put on top of it these layers of what I'm trying to teach them socially. Right. So I'll have them kind of improvise with me, and that way I can take care of the situation. Yep. But I'll say, okay, well, come at me. I'll choose a girl. Let's say, tell me, you know, you heard I was talking bad about. So, hey, I heard you were talking bad about me. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'll demonstrate what I'm sure they've heard, right? Whatever. You don't need to be dramatic about it. Like, I'm allowed to talk to my friends, whatever. And I'm like, what if now this person I'm playing also, and then I explain, you know, she's going through something. Or the friend I told that to was treating me bad, and I thought that by trading this information, she would like me more. And I'm like, that doesn't make what I did good, but you can be more empathetic of me, and you can see why I did it. And so not just that, but if we all just spoke the truth to each other, those two people could probably get over it a lot faster and understand.
Absolutely.
It's playing... You're playing to see that we're all the same. You know, you are an elephant. If you can play an elephant on the moon, I mean, I don't think that there are elephants on the moon, but I like to think if you played one once, you could probably meet one and, you know, have a fairly good conversation, right? Yeah. If you can play it, you can understand it.
I'm just mesmerized thinking about when you are educating kids in that environment, when you're giving them the chance to be in situations before they're going to be in that situation. Or, you know, maybe some of them have had that situation exactly happen and they can relate to it. But then there's going to be other girls who experience that. And then when it comes up in real life, they're going to be so much more aware of what's going on and so much more present in that moment because they get they were there before they were there.
Yeah. I've gone through several iterations as Show Up Girls has evolved on what I call it, what word I put first. So it used to be improv, and then it switched to confidence, and then I heard feedback from customers that were like, you should really hone in on improv. And now I'm pushing back and I'm like, this is confidence and interpersonal communication skills and self-compassion.
Right.
And we provide tools to help girls manage their lives better and thrive.
Yeah.
Show Up Girls was started because of me hearing horrific statistics. It was created because there are horrible things happening to our girls.
Yeah.
But that will almost never come up. I have never once in a class said, I'm teaching you these skills so that, should you start to have an issue with food, you won't die from an eating disorder one day, right? Even though there's a huge statistic of that, of the amount of people who have eating disorders, what that demographic is. It's usually women. It's usually, they start between the ages, I believe it's like 18 to 25. It's our young women. And there are, and those don't go away. You're always just managing it from then on.
Yeah.
Depression and anxiety are both more common in women, and that starts younger and younger. Yeah. And I can't fix that. I can't stop that from happening. That's neurological and nurture, right? Nature and nurture. But I can provide tools to make it manageable.
Yeah.
And if I can do that, that would be, if I help one girl smile, like even if it takes biting into a pencil when she's depressed, I'm good. I'm done. Yeah. Right. That I checked off a giant checkbox in my life of things to do. So we are fun loving. We are laughing in class. We are compassionate with each other. We are respectful, and it is a fun class to take. But the impetus behind it is extremely serious.
Yeah. Well, and that's, the true definition of empowering someone, because you're providing them with resources and tools to show them that they can do this. Gosh, I'm sorry. I'm getting, so I've got two little girls. I've got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. So every day I see the challenges that they face, and I just am grateful for what you're doing.
Oh, that's very sweet.
I'm grateful that, I don't know. Oftentimes I think what we do to kids is we say, follow me and I'll take care of you. And then we let them down. And I think what's great is that not only are you providing who you are to help them and to speak into their life, but you're also, like I said, empowering them so they get, I can do things on my own, and I can have conversations, and I don't have to be afraid that I don't know what to say. I can still be engaged in a conversation, and I can still address issues, and I can still stand up for myself because I can do it. I don't know. I messaged you earlier, like, when this comes to LA, I want my kids involved in it, but I'm just grateful that you care enough to do it, and that you're using a tool as good as improv to reach kids. It's perfect.
They're so perfectly aligned. Improv is come as you are, and everything you have is exactly enough. Yeah. And let's build this together. You're not alone.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yeah. There's an amazing book that I use when I'm thinking about curriculum for Show Up Girls, which is How to Be an Imperfectionist. And just one example of what this author says is, he's like, just for an example, say you want to work out more. Yeah. It's not, all right, every day from 8 to 9 a.m., I'm going to go to the gym and work out for an hour on the treadmill. every day. If you do that, unless you are the strongest willed person in the world, that is not going to be a goal you can keep. You're going to fail. You're going to miss 1 or 2 days, and then you're going to give up. If you just say, I'm going to work out every day, and you don't you don't set a minimum amount of work, you're going to be more successful. So he says it as, okay, well now, oh shoot, I slept in, so I don't have time to go to the gym this morning. Crap, I just won't be able to do it today. It's like, okay, well, can you, on your lunch hour, can you go for a run for 5 minutes outside? Or before you go to bed, can you do 20 sit-ups or 20 crunches before you go on your floor? Like, that's working out. And you're getting more done than if you said, okay, I'll do it tomorrow.
That's great.
It's the imperfect. So that's just one example of it. But it's like, instead of setting these weird, like, but it wasn't the perfect workout. It's like,
it's not an all or nothing.
The done workout is more important. Done is better than perfect, right?
Yep.
Perfect doesn't happen. That's not a thing. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. And that's something that I've been challenged by. My friend Eddie told me earlier this year, the whole done is better than perfect thing. When it comes to even just life and what we do. I mean, the fact is, like, somebody wrote a screenplay for Beverly Hills Chihuahua. And
they got a movie made.
They got like 3 of them things done. Like, that's not a great movie, but it's done, you know?
Right. But my mom was asking, she was like, how did this person get a second show? That show they had was terrible. I was like, because they got a show on the air.
Yeah. Right.
Do you know the odds? Having worked at NBC, I can tell you the odds of getting a show on the air.
Right.
They're nearly impossible.
Right.
That show could be them taking their nail polish off for a half hour.
Right.
And it's still incredible that it happened.
Yeah.
I was just going to say earlier.
I can edit. I'll edit this part out. No one will know we ever even hesitated, because it's all about perfection on this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a big thing. I put a lot of thought into what I do or don't wear when I teach. Yeah. So I will wear very minimal or no makeup.
Yeah.
And it's funny considering how low self-esteem I had in middle school, particularly in high school. But like, I will now walk in with all of my blemishes and eye bags into a middle school and see middle schoolers that, you know, are made up better than me. And I'm like, well, this is the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
I am confronting a lot of demons right now to relive this, but that's the point of it.
And it's interesting how when we decide to reach out to others that we are confronted with our own demons, you know? And
yeah, I know one person, and it's a good friend of mine, who seems to have, and I think she would agree, very strong confidence most days of her life.
Okay.
She is. And she said, because she said, my parents just raised me to confident. And she's, you know, not those other words that are misconstrued with confidence, and is probably a reason that women don't portray confidence as often, you know, where they're arrogant or bossy or whatever.
Yeah.
She's just sure of herself. She's sure of her talents. This is what I was going to say earlier. I am very blessed to have had multiple life-changing mentors.
Yeah.
I can think of 3 immediately, 3 different women that were incredible teachers. And the gift they gave me was not do this.
Yeah.
It was, you are very good at this and you should do this more. All 3 of them at a different point said, you do this. And it was usually something that I didn't even know I did. They said, you do this, and this is different, and this is important, and this is a gift that you have.
Wow.
In fact, 2 different ones both said, you look at life on a slant, which I think is such a weird, I've never heard anyone else say that before, but the fact that 2 different people that don't know each other said that to me years apart is so interesting. Like, you look at life on a slant. You look at life differently than others would. So, you know, you can think of what that would mean. And probably will mean different things to me at different parts of my life, but that is very helpful to know. Like, okay, so a gift of mine is approaching a topic differently than someone else. Great. How can I use that to help others? So that's why, going back to Show Up Girls, you know, I will call out my girls. I will stop scenes and say, you are doing this really well. Keep doing, like, this is a really good exploration. And I've never seen anyone else do this before. So this is very strong what you're doing. This must mean that you are very aware. You're very self-aware. And that's a tremendous power to have, right? So I'll talk through things. And on the other side of the coin, in a scene, when I'm having my girls improvise, I'll say, this is for the older girls and for longer class series, once we've really figured out how to improvise and they can go off on their own and do long improvised scenes. I'll say, you are hesitating. You are editing. You are not improvising. Stop writing. If you want to write, this was a student that was phenomenal, and she wanted to be an actress. And this was the first kind of dramatic class she could ever take. It was this, you know, it was a free class after school. And she was like, right, but I want to have like the right monologue. I was like, we'll write that later. But right now you're improvising. Say the line. Just talk. You trying to be a perfectionist, and there's no room for that right now. Stop editing. Just say. I was like, everyone else is improvising right now, and we need you to do that as well. And then if you want to write this scene later, which I am fine with because this is a great scene, great. Then we can discuss how we want to edit it for the final version. But right now you need to talk, because ultimately it doesn't matter what that scene is doing. It's what is happening inside of her. And I need her to let go and lose control.
That's the power of improv. And that's what people come to see in a show. But it's also every great thing we experience in life. That's it. It's real and it's genuine and it's unfiltered and it's
messy.
It's messy. It's like messy and pure at the same time, because it's not, you know, cleaned up and packaged.
No. And one of the favorite weeks I've ever spent with my family, and I have a very close-knit family, was the week that, like, my beloved grandfather died. Right? Like, it's one of the most heart-wrenching things that's ever happened to me, and also one of my favorite weeks with my family. Wow. That is messy. Yeah. You know, life is very messy. Relationships, we're all just like weirdos bouncing around having interactions and offending each other. Like, life is messy. Why are we striving for perfection? It ain't coming. Perfection is an illusion, right? Like the idea of, sometimes in presentations, I'll use a Rubik's Cube as an illustration. And the whole point of it is everyone wants one that's perfect, right? Everyone wants to get it all in the right place. And I'll be happy when all the pieces line up and there's no problems. And it's just, but then nobody wants to play with it because it's perfect and they don't want to screw it up, right? Like, if we ever did get... boring. Yeah, if we ever got perfection, we'd just be like, well, that's it. It's a wrap, you know? Let's not mess it up anymore. But but embracing the moment, like actually being present with people in the midst of their junk, that's the magic. That's the juice. That's where it's like, this is the good stuff. Yeah. And I think it's because we're so afraid to share it. And if we shared it more, we would be like, oh, this is normal. Messed up is normal. Yeah. Are you familiar with Brené Brown's work? A little bit, yeah. I love her, and the research she does on shame is incredible. An exercise I do with my girls is acceptance speeches. So it's like they're accepting, you know, whatever award they want to accept, a Grammy, an Oscar, or whatever. But they're giving the acceptance speech of I accept, and then they either say something, a mistake they made, or a victory that they're going to take all the credit for. Yeah. So I accept. I accept that and then you know, I did not study enough for my test and I got a bad grade and I should have known better. And there is a lot of power, one, in saying it, in shining a light on the shadow, but two, then hearing like, oh, that's happened to me before, because it's happened to everyone before. And the second you pull away, you know, the second you zoom out of yourself and you see there are all these other people in the room with you, that this has happened to,
Yeah.
you can face it. If you're ashamed of something, you're not going to want to look at it. And if you don't look at it, you can't change your behavior and you're going to keep doing it.
This is so good.
Like, I'll say it right now. I am ashamed of the fact that I know I was purchasing too much on my credit card this month. And so I thus am not going on my credit card right now on my online banking to look at it. And I know the second I do, I'm going to readjust my budget for next month and be better.
Yeah.
But because I'm ashamed of it, I'm not going to look at it, right?
Gosh, but you know what, though?
These things have dire consequences.
Yeah. And us keeping silent about our shame, though, it also doesn't support others. Because we all, I mean, it goes back to you talking about, us all, we all deal with the same stuff. It's universal. Like, that's what's fun about playing characters is we're all that character sometimes, Mm-hmm. But the more we open up and are vulnerable and open and get that, like, this thing that seems so isolated and so the scenario that we're dealing with that seems like no one else has ever had to deal with it is so unbelievably universal that it can be powerful, not only to you to not feel isolated, but for other people to go, wow, I'm not alone.
Right. And now you're making me realize it goes completely back to the first thing we were talking about on this podcast. Maybe there is a good reason for bad improv, because I think it is, you are doing a great service for everyone in the audience to make quote unquote bad choices or make mistakes quote unquote on stage in front of them to broadcast and sell tickets to Imperfection. Are you kidding? To glorify Imperfection? I'm just realizing now where bad improv fits in the world, that it actually is a really beautiful thing.
Oh, that is such a high point of view to take. That's such a zoomed out perspective on things.
Yeah, that's the first I've ever been able to. Because
but the next time you get invited to somebody's class show, you're gonna be like, ugh.
All right, fine. I'm sure this will improve myself as a human.
Lynne, this has been so stinging encouraging to me, and I really want to make sure that everyone gets a good idea of how they can support the work that you're doing with these girls, and also, we've talked a lot about conversations you've had and work that you've done with them, but what does a day in the life of Show Up Girls look like? When people say, well, what do you guys do as an organization? What is it that you do? How do you go about connecting with these kids and speaking into their lives?
Sure. So we're currently locally based in Chicago, and we work with partnerships. So we do one-off lessons, usually with Girl Scout troops or maybe other nonprofits that want to bring us in either to work on a badge that fits in well with our mission kind of role playing. I know I'm working on one next month that just deals with disagreements and like civil discourse. And they're like, discuss how well civil discourse works in our government. And I'm like, haha, this is an old guide. Hey, kids, want to know why the government shut down? They didn't take a Show Up Girls class.
Our friends were driving on a family trip to go to Joshua Tree, and they pulled up, and it was right when the government shut down, and they couldn't go to the park. So they had this like great family lesson about like government.
All I'm saying is, if Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell want to take a Show Up Girls class, I would love to have them with my 8-year-old. I'm not going to invite them to the teen class yet. It's too advanced for them, but they can come to the 8-year-old class and we can really get to the bottom of it. I'm confident within an hour we would be set. So we work in one-off workshops like that, doing basic, working on communication, yes-anding, and how to collaborate, how to be respectful, how to listen, how to focus, how to share focus. That's really effective with younger girls where you're kind of like me, and high energy of just like, how can I respect and support my friend while also feeling good about myself? Like those two things can happen concurrently, right?
So
And how can we see how much we all have in common, and how can we not be afraid together? Or when we are afraid, how can we share our fears, and like beginning to work on shame and just those beginning communication skills, starting to give them those tools. And then I do longer programs with schools, whether it's a summer camp or I'm starting a program next week at a college prep here in Chicago. This is going to be the first school that's bringing me in during school hours, which I'm so excited about. The assistant principal is involved in a very big way. And I guess because I sent them a cold email saying, you know, like I did to 50 other principals in the Chicagoland area, saying we work with girls, helping with confidence and communication. And as she got that email, she had just had 2 other teachers leave her office saying, we have a problem with our girls. They're bullying. We need to do something drastic with them. And she happened to get my email at that point. And she called me in for a meeting and said, how can we bring you in?
Oh, and, that's fantastic.
You know, they sent me this long list teachers suggested of things to cover. And, you know, it was like no means no, social drama, what to post and not to post on social media, sexual harassment, sex. And I was like, okay, well, you know my background. I have a degree in television writing. I'm not a health teacher. I'm not a child psychologist. So, you know, I'm not going to teach directly that, but I'm going to teach communication, collaboration, confidence, self-compassion.
Yep.
And listening and empathy. And that is the basis. A lack of all of that is the reason we have the issues on those bigger topics.
Right. You're addressing the cause and not the symptoms.
Yes, exactly. And by the way, I think a lack of empathy is the reason we have most problems in our government. In our world, right? A lack of empathy.
Yeah.
A lack of being able to say, well, maybe they have it worse than I do, or maybe they have a reason. Maybe they actually think that they're doing the best they can, right? It's like, I think Alan Rickman said, you know, I don't play villains, I play heroes, because he didn't say exactly that, but like that no villain thinks they're the villain. Right? Except, you know, Darth Vader or Voldemort, like high concept fantasy things. But everyone thinks they're doing exactly what is true on their compass. So if we actually faced each other, assuming that the other person has what's best for the greater good in their head, maybe we could bring more to the table.
But it starts with empathy.
It starts with empathy. It starts with understanding that we're all just, you know, animals that figured out how to communicate, right?
Right.
We're all the same. We all are starting from the same place, and we all have a lot to teach the other. So we operate in partnerships like that. You know, right now it's just me teaching. As we grow bigger, I want to have more teachers, and that would mean getting to expand to more places. My ultimate goal is to be international with Show Up Girls. But if you are interested in learning more, in contacting me, in finding out how you can help and support it, and by support I mean not just financial, but with your ideas, with your connections, that is just as valuable as money. You can go to Show Up Girls, www.showupgirls.org or .com. I bought both domains.
There you go.
And you can find out more.
Guys, go check it out. Lynne, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. I'm leaving this conversation inspired and challenged personally, and then also just how can we go out there and actually do something in the world that makes a difference? And I'm grateful for you. I'm going to turn this off and we can keep talking. But guys, go check out Show Up Girls and go support them in every way possible.